The first time I saw that padlock on my gate, I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to accept that a group of grown adults had really driven onto my land and chained up my property like they were conquering a tiny country. Then I grabbed the cold steel, realized I didn't have a key, and understood this wasn't some neighborhood misunderstanding, this was a seizure. My name's Marcus Ellison, and in 2011 I bought 4 acres in Granbury, Texas because I wanted space, quiet, and the basic dignity of being left alone on land I paid for. The deed was crystal clear. My property line ran past the fence across the gravel access road and over every utility corridor crossing that acreage. County records backed it up, the survey backed it up, and the original developer had approved my rear gate in 2013 through the Architectural Committee. It had stood there for 12 years without a single challenge. That gate separated my back acreage from the neighborhood common area. It wasn't on HOA land, it wasn't blocking public access, and it wasn't violating any covenant anybody could name. Then a new HOA board took over in January, and the new president, Diane Hargrove, decided my gate was suddenly a community problem. She cited no bylaw, no easement dispute, no clause in the CCRs. She just decided she had the right to control it. One Tuesday in March, while I was out, a contractor hired by the board drove onto my property and put an industrial padlock through my gate latch. No certified letter, no hearing, no vote, no notice, nothing. I found it that evening standing there in the fading light like somebody had stamped the word mine over the word yours. I went to Diane that same night. Under what authority did you lock my gate? She said the board had enforcement power under the deed restrictions. I said, show me the provision. She couldn't. Not wouldn't, couldn't. She started talking in vague HOA language, community access board discretion. Keeping order, the kind of talk people use when they've got attitude, but no paperwork. I followed up the right way, 3 written requests over 2 weeks asking for the legal basis. Every one of them got ignored. That was when I stopped treating it like a petty neighborhood argument and started treating it like a case. I pulled original plat maps, utility records, easement filings, every county document tied to that subdivision. Buried in those records was the thing Diane never bothered to check before trying to make me bow. The primary water line supplying the entire subdivision ran directly under my land. Not near it, through it. A licensed surveyor confirmed the route. It entered at the northwest corner of my property, crossed diagonally for about 140 feet, and exited near the southeast boundary. And the easement that once allowed it to be there expired years earlier and had never been renewed. I remember staring at that map at my kitchen table, coffee cold beside me, realizing this story was no longer about a gate. The same HOA that had chained up my private property without authority was depending on my land for the water feeding the clubhouse, the pool, and the common area irrigation. They had trespassed on my rights while standing on a legal trapdoor they didn't even know existed. Instead of backing down, the board escalated. I got a compliance notice by regular mail saying I owed $250 for unauthorized obstruction. My own gate on my own property. A second notice followed with a $500 fine and vague threats about liens. That was when I hired David Quantero, a real estate attorney with the kind of calm voice that makes other people's panic look expensive. He reviewed the covenant's plats, approvals, and survey, then said, Marcus, they don't have this authority. Not even close. He sent the first demand letter by certified mail, remove the padlock, rescind the fine, stop interfering with my client's property rights. 14 days to respond. The board ignored him and sent me another threat instead. David just nodded. Bad boards always make the same mistake. Once they realize they're wrong, they double down, and in doubling down, they hand you evidence. So we gathered all of it. Every notice, every envelope, every missing citation, every contradiction. A forensic accountant reviewed the HOA books and found the board had spent $14,000 from reserve funds on the contractor mess without a membership vote. The audit got uglier from there, sloppy transfers, undisclosed reserve movement, financial mismanagement that reached well beyond my gate. Meanwhile, the stress was starting to show. My doctor documented stress-induced hypertension. A psychological evaluation linked chronic stress directly to the HOA conflict. That part isn't cinematic, but it's real petty power. Doesn't just waste your time, it gets into your sleep, your chest, your nerves. David sent a second demand letter, this time to each board member individually, warning of personal liability for unlawful seizure and interference with property use. Still no response. So we filed suit. The case asked the court to confirm what the records already proved. The HOA had no jurisdiction over my gate, no authority to fine me over it, and no valid easement to that water line on my land. We sought injunctive relief damages, attorney fees, medical costs, and punitive damages for willful misconduct. Then, on David's advice, I did the one thing that made the whole neighborhood finally understand who actually held leverage. I got the permits, hired a licensed plumber, and lawfully shut off the valve to the water line crossing my property. Within an hour, the clubhouse lost water. The pool system stopped. The irrigation for the common areas went dead. By the next morning, Diane was calling me directly, sounding nothing like the woman who had acted like she owned my back fence. "Marcus, you need to turn that water back on immediately." I said, "You need to call my attorney." That was the moment the power shifted. And here came the twist nobody on that board saw coming. At the emergency HOA meeting, 2 board members broke ranks. One of them, the treasurer, admitted on the record they had never voted to authorize the padlock. Another said Diane had acted on her own. No board resolution, no official approval, no legal review. Just one woman with too much ego and not enough caution. Those meeting minutes became gold. Then the HOA's insurance carrier stepped in and raised another problem. If Diane's actions counted as intentional misconduct, coverage might not apply. That changed the tone fast. Nothing makes fake authority wobble like the possibility of personal exposure. During discovery, the HOA's attorney couldn't produce a single document authorizing any of it. No vote record, no resolution, no legal opinion, no proper notice trail. Under oath, Diane admitted she had never consulted an attorney before ordering the padlock, never checked whether the gate sat on HOA land or mine, and never reviewed the status of the easement. She had done all of it on confidence alone, which sounds impressive right up until it meets a sworn transcript. By then, the whole subdivision was feeling the cost. Legal fees were climbing. The insurer flagged the case as severe exposure. A special assessment was proposed so homeowners could help pay for the fallout. Imagine that regular residents, people who never touched my gate, now staring at an $800 bill because their board president decided she could play sheriff on private property. The judge issued a preliminary ruling ordering the padlock removed within 48 hours. The court found the HOA had no credible legal basis for restricting access to a privately owned gate on deeded land. I won't lie, that felt good. Not movie scene good, quiet good, the kind that settles in your chest when a court says in plain language what you knew from day one. When that lock finally came off, it hit the dirt with this sharp little metal clank that sounded better than most music I've heard in years. After that, settlement became inevitable. We demanded reimbursement of attorney fees, rescission of every fine, medical damages, and a proper licensing fee for the water line crossing my property. Rerouting that line would have cost the HOA a fortune, so they settled in June. I received $47,000 total attorney fees, reversed fines, medical damages, and payment tied to the new utility easement. The HOA also had to sign a new easement agreement with annual licensing payments and mandatory renewal terms, this time on paper, where real authority belongs. Diane resigned within a week. 2 more board members were voted out in a recall. The HOA adopted new rules requiring legal review before enforcement action. And because arrogance always sends the bill somewhere, the community's insurance premium went up too. My gate stands open today. The padlock is gone. There's a sign on it now that says private property, which might be a little dramatic after all the court filings, transcripts, and settlement documents. But I left it there anyway. Sometimes a sign isn't there to inform people. Sometimes it's there to remind them. What I learned from all this is something I wish more homeowners understood. Power is never as real as it sounds when it can't survive paperwork. A bully with a title can ruin your week. A bully with a board can ruin your blood pressure. But MAP's records, certified mail sworn testimony, those things don't flinch. A lot of abusive people go unchallenged, not because they're right, but because they're counting on exhaustion. They want you tired enough to confuse peace with surrender. Sometimes the quietest kind of justice is just forcing the truth onto paper. So let me ask you this, if your HOA crossed a line like this, would you fight it all the way, even if your neighbors ended up paying for the fallout? Or would you take the quicker piece and let the abuse stand? Drop your opinion in the comments. Tell me what's right, what's too far, and share your own story if you've ever had to defend your home from the people claiming to protect the community.